And welcome back to the Hot Lap IndyCar news here. A new IndyCar team has been announced for 2025. If you are a Formula 1, particularly an F2 fan, you more than likely would have heard for everything worth knowing here from the race about Prema's new IndyCar team. Yes, today pretty much breaking the Prema team, as we know, famous for Formula 2 and Formula 3 success, is catapulting a number of drivers, well, two, into IndyCar, and this is the same team that has catapulted drivers into F1. So entering with what's going to be Chevrolet engines, two cars for 2025, the team principal of the squad, Rene Rosen, and team reps are on the ground to launch the outfit stateside at the Indy 500 Open Test that's going to be happening this week. Pierre Phillips, that's the ex-Rahal Letterman president, pictured below here, lovely smiling face. He's part of the delegation as the person overseeing this in the States. Now, the team is regularly in the spotlights in F2, and it fields the 17-year-old who is in the mix, that's Kimi Antonelli, to replace Lewis Hamilton. But now that focus is going to switch, at least momentarily, from the newsfeed to IndyCar. There are many questions you might have about the team's move from therace.com. Is it being set up to give F2 drivers a home, for example? Will it be run by staff from Italy or America? How will it approach the ovals? I completely agree. Will it adapt to being behind with the hybrid, or be successful where other teams have struggled? Now, the race has spoken to the team and polled its sources to give you answers. So let's get into this article. Why and now? Well, Prema's been working with potential IndyCar program for some time, reportedly. The fact that many of its drivers have made appearances or home in IndyCar was not lost on the squad. The team celebrated its 40th anniversary last year in a glitzy event near its base in Venice, and that was attended by Formula 1 champions, Le Mans winners and legends of motorsport. But up until a few years ago, the team was very much focused on junior Formula. However, it's expanded into sports cars, karting and the F1 Academy alongside its more familiar F2 and F3 series. IndyCar is the next step, and it comes now so that there is time before 2025 to enter the market for, well, I mean, they're going to need, as it says, drivers, they're going to need staff, they're going to need sponsors, and to have time to get a team set up before next season. Now, the team is used to getting a brand new car and having 3 days of testing before the F2 season. So this will lead they're saying this is going to be quite the luxury. Is it just somewhere to place F2 drivers is the question mark. So at the core of its answer, in its recent expansion, specifically we've got sports cars and karting, Prema's seen a gap in the market for its expertise, and from therace.com, as reportedly they're looking to exploit it. It will be short-sighted to suggest that the team is just the place for F2 drivers, they're suggesting, although you can bet that owing to how much data and information it has on those drivers, they will certainly be high on the shortlist. I mean, you just imagine how many Formula 2 drivers have not made it for one reason or another to Formula 1, mainly because these current crop of F1 drivers, they're not retiring, are they? They're not leaving. So it's going to be really interesting. I mean, could the F2 champion, who doesn't get a decent drive in Formula 1 or a drive at all in Formula 1, then make it to IndyCar? And then that's going to really, when you look at the pool of IndyCar drivers, that's going to make it a lot more lucrative, isn't it? So, but the team is well aware, it says here, that there'll be benefits to taking drivers it isn't familiar with too. The IndyCar team will operate independently, team boss Rene Rosen told the race when asked if it was just a feeder for its current drivers. Of course, if there is a driver whose profile and skills match the ones required for their IndyCar team, they said they will be happy to take them into consideration. However, at least at the beginning, and in an ideal world, we would like one of the two drivers to have experience in IndyCar to help us accelerate the learning process and bridge this gap to other teams. I think the expansion of Prema and IndyCar could be an additional motivation for our drivers and completes our ladder even more. I mean, I think more teams, the better. And unlike Andretti, I'm sure IndyCar's going to welcome them with open arms. And they say our ideal lineup will be made of an experienced driver and a quick rookie. Of course, we will also have to take into consideration the drivers' market and make the best possible choice for the team. They've said they're already in contact with some drivers, but they haven't made their choice yet. So where will the team be based? But where will this team be based? And it says, contrary to recent incorrect reports, the team will be based in Indiana in order to be close to the championship's hub of teams in Indianapolis. Makes perfect sense. I mean, if you have an F1 team, you want it kind of like near Silverstone, or not too many miles away from Silverstone, within like an hour or two. The same kind of like with IndyCar. But obviously they're Silicon Valley, let's say, of IndyCar teams. How will the team be structured? Well, the previous answer gives you a hint to what Prema is trying to achieve. They've got this base in Indianapolis. That means being a prime position to attract what they're going to be looking at, key members of staff, maybe from other IndyCar teams. And they've said this isn't just going to be a satellite team in Indy run by Prema. And as we know, Prema, very much Italian. Of course, it will make use of the resources at its base in Italy, including the equipment and people. But the goal is to set up an actual IndyCar team from the ground up. Rosen has said the way we want to establish the team is within the heart of it being American, but our aim is also to implement our traditional methods and culture that has always worked in the past. What about F2 teams failing in IndyCar before? As we know, Carlin is the most recent F2 team to try its hand at IndyCar, entering in 2018 before disappearing at the end of 21. Now, first off, Carlin had some highs and earned the respect of many for the result it was able to achieve, most notably scoring a pole position at the Iowa Shore Oval in 2020 with Connor Daly. But fundamentally, the team had a lot of staff turnover, with many flying over from the UK base to support, and without a technical partnership with an existing team, it struggled. And you get the feeling that Prema comes in slightly with better and more resources, when with the goal of being more reliant, and I think this is the key thing here, more reliant on the US personnel than its own. I mean, one of the difficulties, I think, for example, that Ferrari have had is to get people from overseas to work for their team in the past. Not so much now. That was also something based in Cologne Toyota struggled with as well. Once again, the Silicon Valley of Formula One being in and around the Silverstone area, you know, within like an hour or two radius. Now, Prema is also open to a technical partnership that we've seen in IndyCar in recent years with Meyer Shank, which gets equipment and engineering support from Andretti Global. If it's beneficial, they're saying it's going to be investigated. Now, will it lag, no pun intended, behind with a hybrid disadvantage? Prema is going to arrive in the series with the current IndyCar teams having already tested this new hybrid unit that is slated to be introduced sometime in the second half of the season. And Rosen said the team are fast learners, but he's fairly pragmatic, and even he admits that 2025 is going to be a pivotal year for us to understand and adapt to this new series. How though? And this is the big thing. IndyCar, awesome tracks. They do include oval zone. How is it going to approach those ovals? Well, it's not often the 40-year-old team encounters new challenges, but neither team founder Angelo Rosen or current team principal Rennie Rosen have fielded cars in America before, and he's pretty much said, I can't wait to see Prema operating one of the most famous races in the world, having made Le Mans debut in recent years with a class podium and having won races at Macau, which is highly respected in the States too. And they've said, as is often the phase used by engineers when it comes to ovals, the physics don't change. So good personnel are more than capable of adapting and learning. Again though, it's been suggested that this could be quite tough, but Rosen said the personnel will be the most valuable asset we will have, especially at the beginning. And I think that's key as well. You want an experienced IndyCar driver and a rookie, particularly, I think, in their first few years as they get and they gel themselves together. Developing a new car is in the DNA. And it says you might think Prema comes competes in a host of series with a chassis and most of the cars decided for it and purchased as a package rather than being developed from the ground up. Some aspects of IndyCar they're saying might be tricky, and some of the work that goes on with aero behind the scenes, and particularly the development of dampers in the series, provides so much room for development reportedly, and it's going to have potential massive gains and sadly on the other side, huge losses. IndyCar is certainly more open to changes than any of the other series that Prema is currently competing in. But one thing to remember is that Prema cut its teeth in the 1980s world of Formula 3, where car development was a lot familiar, albeit that's a really long time ago. Now, the car number and livery. So, owing to the team being founded in 1983, older than some of the people listening to this, but not all, Sadly, I am older than Prema. Moving on. The team will run a one car with the 83 as it was available. Hey! So, the race understands that Prema wants to keep some brand identity in its livery, perhaps like McLaren, which has similar designs across multiple series and just subtly tweaks the colours. Now, of course, it's going to depend on things like sponsors, but it feels it could really do that. And is Prema testing this week? No, it says. The team is just making the announcement that it is joining the series at the Indianapolis test, which takes place on the 10th of April, so tomorrow at the time of driving, at the time of speaking. So it's going to be quite interesting. So let's get into the Prema stats. I mean, they're currently Formula F2. Yes, Andrea Kimi Antonelli and any other F1 fan that watched the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix will recognise his teammate as well, Ollie Behrman, the youngest British rookie, youngest Ferrari driver, youngest Ferrari rookie, youngest British point scorer and youngest Ferrari point scorer. Career highlights, I think 2 out of the 8 championships in Formula 2 they've won. 39 wins, 86 podiums and 27 poles. That is no mean feat. Absolutely bang tidy for Formula 2. I mean, yeah, sadly, 52 retirements, but they have 33 fastest laps throughout their 8 years and 2,104.5 points. 45 front row starts for Prema. So, it's going to. I can't wait for them to be an IndyCar. It's going to be really, really interesting. If you like what you see, and we are going to be doing more IndyCar news as we carry on, please give us a subscribe. That would be absolutely fantastic. If you do, you're an Indy 500 winner. If you do like and subscribe, we'll bow down to you as an Indy champion in our eyes. Thank you very much. We'll speak to you soon.